Jeff Allen is on. Now, all of a sudden, she's interested because Jeff Allen is a guy who, he's this comedian who I take credit in discovering. He's only
It's an interesting telling of that story.
He's only been on the circuit forever and, very well known. But now that I've discovered him in my life, now he's going to be somebody. Anyway, so last night, my wife and my daughter, who doesn't find anybody funny because she grew up around me and I've kind of wrecked it for her, she went to Restoring Love and she saw Jeff Allen and she came back and she said to me, Dad, have you seen him? And I said, no, I just keep hearing he's really funny. And she said, he is so funny. Dad, I couldn't breathe. Now, she's a 20-something. My wife goes, she says the same thing. She said, tears are coming down out of my eyes. He's so funny. Then we went up to Freedom Works in Cincinnati, and we sat there and we watched behind stage, and he is just hysterical. And here's the amazing thing. He's on our side. It doesn't happen. He's on our side. And so I've invited him in for this week, and he's going to be with us on election night, and he's with us now. Hi, Jeff. How are you, sir?
Good morning, guys. I got to tell you this. Every time I make my wife sit down and watch something I do, she says, I'd rather have a spinal tap.
Spinal taps can be enjoyable.
Yeah, once in a while.
Well, it has its moments.
My wife would give it to herself. She'd just say, I'm just going to take a knife and I'm going to put it in the door jamb and I'm going to back into it for the spinal tap. You weren't always conservative, or were you?
No, I grew up in Chicago. My father was a union guy, so politics was pretty simple. You vote Democrat or I'm tearing up your birth certificate.
Right.
Yeah, it's either vote for the Dems or be disowned.
And what happened to you?
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. I realized I was an idiot back in the mid-'80s. Somebody in New York, I was working in New York in the clubs at Catch a Rising Star, and some guy referred to Ronald Reagan as a capitalistic swine. And it came a point on my way home, I realized I didn't know what the word capitalist meant. So I looked it up, and that little voice that God gives us says, man, you're an idiot. You make your living with words, and you don't even know what a basic word means. And when I read what the word capitalist meant, I thought, gee, what's wrong with that? I didn't understand why that was a bad thing to be associated with swine.
And so you started to look into what things were, and then you went out. You went out and started revealing this to people.
Right, exactly, at a comedy club.
That wasn't really a smart idea.
No, not at all. And I have all the tact of a bull in a china shop.
Why do you suppose that is? Why do you suppose that you can't be cool and conservative? Why is that?
Well, it's a narrative. And if you don't fit the narrative, they got to shut the narrative down. I believe that. I mean, so, and this was long before I was, I became a person of faith. But I don't know. It was interesting to me. I had a guy. I was telling somebody once I was really miserable. I was at a 12-step convention or something, and I'm 6 or 7 years in the program.
Convention? I didn't know they had convention.
Well, they had them. A bunch of drunks get together.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just called a cake party. That's all that is.
It doesn't sound like a good idea. Hey, let's all go out of town. Vegas. Let's go over to some bars and some hookers.
Yeah, my last night drinking, I was in front of Graceland in Memphis, screaming for the king. So,
really?
And some guard comes out and says, "You'll have to leave. You have to wait for the morning." I go, "No, I was just wondering if Elvis left any Valium under the bushes. I'm a little jacked right now, and I can't get to sleep." So.
Really not good.
No.
But you stumbled onto us, and you've been a fan of like Moron Trivia. And
oh my God, I was so glad you brought it back. It's so nice to sit at home and feel so good about myself.
Right.
I used to work in a mini mart, so I mean I have an empathy for that.
How was that? How'd that work out for you?
Well, I worked the graveyard shift, and I was manager. I want you to know that.
Wow.
I was
impressive.
You were just wearing a shelf.
I was impressed until I got to work and found out I was really the only guy there. So, I had to fire myself. I caught myself stealing a few times. What was interesting was because it was late at night, you get these guys that would come in and take you out of your meditative trance,
Right.
Why am I such a loser? And I can't, why am my life where it's at? And they go, hey, where are you keeping the SpaghettiOs? There's 3 aisles. Why don't you and your Mensa friends get together and figure it out on your own? So then they pick the can up and start walking in the microwave, and you would say, no one could be that stupid as to put a can into a microwave and then fire that thing up. Well, the depths of ignorance in America never cease to amaze me. Not only do they turn it on, they put their face up against the glass and admire the sparks. So you got to figure there's someone 3 blocks away with a pacemaker pounding their chest. Oh, God, they're cooking another can again. What's going on? I hate this neighborhood.
How long did you work at a convenience store?
A month.
A month. And then where did you go from the convenience store? Well, I
found out it was the most dangerous job in America next to cop. So I just started turning the register around and leaving it open. I'm not dying for the Southland Corporation. That's what used to kill me about the shoplifters. They'd put Twinkies in their pants and then walk around crunching, because cellophane's not the quietest material. And they go, I don't see anything I want. I'll see you guys in the car.
You must feel like you have a high level of cleanliness if you're willing to eat Twinkies out of your pants. That's not something I'd be willing to attempt.
I don't know if you're that picky if you're stealing the Twinkies from the 7-Eleven that Jeff is working at.
At the price they charge, that's actually a felony.
So you went in and you cleaned yourself up because you and I have a lot in common.
Yeah.
You don't need to say it that way.
Well, yeah, we do. It's so funny listening to your story. I go, that's me.
Yeah.
They say there's a twin for everybody.
It's amazing how much, I'm just guessing, how much you think you hated the world, and then when you sober up, you realize, wow, I just hate me. The world's pretty great. People are pretty great.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. And I'm not dropping names, but I had one night where I worked with Seinfeld back before his sitcom at a college, and we got stuck talking, waiting for our checks. And I was miserable. I mean, so after about an hour, he says, can I say something to you? And I go, yeah, please. He goes, and all your complaints. And he goes, believe me, there was a myriad of them. I never heard you complain about how hard you work on your act. He said, this is a small business. You take care of your craft, the business will take care of you. And I thought that was one of the most profound things I'd ever heard. And I go, you in a 12-step program? He goes, no, it's common sense.
So you were sober at the time?
I was. Believe me, I was not a poster boy for the 12-step program.
Well, you were going to the. I
was going to the meetings. They said, hey, they tell me you lie, you die. So I'd raise my hands and go, I don't like you, I don't like you, and I don't like you. So I'm telling the truth. So after about a year and a half, some little old lady comes up to me, sticks her finger in my navel and goes, you know something, young man, can I say something to you? Maybe the problem is not your wife.
Because you really, you, at one point, before you sobered up, because we were talking just a minute ago, and I said, that my wife watched the show last night, and you made her laugh. And my favorite thing with Tanya, I love taking her to a funny movie. I used to love watching The Office with her because it made her laugh. And so she used to think I was funny. She used to. I don't know if your wife has stopped. Pat's wife gave up on that how many years ago?
20.
Yeah.
At least,
wait a minute. How long
20.
you been married?
20 and a half.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what it is. As soon as you get married, your wife stops thinking you're funny.
Well, that's it. And I get the look. That's what I call it, the look.
Yeah.
Like I told you the other day, I'm running about some jokes by Tammy, and I realized 2 minutes into it, I go, you know what, babe, I'll call you back. I'm going to call somebody who appreciates me. But what I love is Pat. Every time Pat does Al Gore, she falls out of her chair. And it's interesting because in 2000, when he would come on the TV, she wouldn't say things like, oh, I can't stand this guy, I hate. She would just mute the television. In the middle of a conversation, his voice would come over our TV. She'd reach for the remote, mute him, and then start talking to me. And then when he stopped talking, she'd unmute the TV. But every time Pat does Gore, she falls out of her chair. So
wait, hang on just a second. What I'm learning from this story is your wife wasn't really listening to you.
Not at all.
If she's muting the TV, she's like, and then turning it back on in the middle of your conversation.
Exactly.
She's really just kind of looking your way.
But that's it.
Yeah.
She's in the room.
What does she do?
She shows dogs, and
what are you? What
she
do you
shows
like,
dogs what? What does she show them?
She's a dog handler.
Here's a cat.
If you've ever seen the movie Best in Show, that's my wife's life.
Oh,
really?
Right, that's it. Yeah.
So I thought you were poor at one point.
We were. She doesn't make any money.
No, but I mean that's not something that
We weren't poor.
It's like, all of a sudden, it's like I'm talking to Ann Romney over here.
My kid came home one day and said, "Are we poor?" I go, "No, we're broke, man. There's a big difference. We got stuff. We can't pay for it, but we got stuff."
All right, Jeff is going to be joining us this week on television. I think tomorrow, aren't we doing a full hour?
I believe so.
With you, and he's a guy who.
That's unless your inbox gets flooded today.
But you were a guy who you didn't pay attention to politics. In fact, I want to come back and just ask you quickly about what you said to the Republicans, because I think this is where most Americans are, at least most conservative Americans are,
right.
On what you said to the Republicans, and I think it's so important. But we're going to spend some time with Jeff because I think he has an important role to play in the healing of America and the future of America. If we don't grab on to the culture and we don't find people that our friends and neighbors who may disagree with us don't find funny, we need people to be able to come into our tent and say that guy's really funny. I don't know, he's conservative, really. And they start thinking of conservatives differently. That's really all the left has. They've got Jon Stewart. You lose Jon Stewart, you lose the movies. They got nothing. They're nothing but a bunch of killers. That's all that's left. And we've got the truth on our side. We have compassion on our side. We just need some funny people and some people that understand culture and entertainment. And Jeff is one of those guys. But back with him in just a second.